Looking for magic cards? At flipsidegaming.com you can now use the promo code LVD to get a 10% discount on orders over $10 while supporting the channel at the same time.
Hello and welcome to another modern gameplay video. This week we're taking a look at Necrotic Ooze, a creature-based, graveyard-based combo deck that plays 4 copies of Necrotic Ooze, a 4-mana 4/3 Ooze creature that says, as long as Necrotic Ooze is on the battlefield, it has all activated abilities of all creature cards in all graveyards. And with the recent printing of Doomwhisper, the deck got a lot better, since Doomwhisper is a 5-mana 6/6 with Flying and Trample, but we mostly care about the activated ability here that lets us pay 2 life to Surveil 2, which means we can take a look at the top 2 cards of our library, and we can put any number of them in our graveyard. So if we have a Necrotic Ooze in play and a Doomwhisper in our graveyard and a bunch of life to spare, we can quickly put even more creatures in our graveyard, paying the 2 life to Surveil 2 over and over again, until we find all the right creatures to set up a combo kill with the Necrotic Ooze's abilities. And the most straightforward way to kill the opponent is using a Morsel Hoarder, which is a very bad creature, but we only really care about the activated ability here that says to remove a -1/-1 counter from Morsel Hoarder, which in this case is going to be Necrotic Ooze, and we can add 1 mana of any color. So the combo with Morsel Hoarder involves a copy of Devoted Druid that's in the graveyard as well, which says you can put a -1/-1 counter on Devoted Druid. In this case, it's going to be Necrotic Ooze to untap Devoted Druid, in this case, Necrotic Ooze. But we don't really care about the untap ability, we just care about the fact that we can put a -1/-1 counter on Necrotic Ooze without any cost. So we can put a -1/-1 counter on the Ooze, and then we can remove that -1/-1 counter with Morsel Hoarder's ability and add 1 mana of any color to our mana pool, which means we can make infinite mana if we have a Necrotic Ooze in play and both a copy of Morsel Hoarder and Devoted Druid in our graveyard. And with that infinite mana, there's a lot of ways we can potentially kill the opponent. We're opting for the Walking Ballista kill, which of course works if you have Walking Ballista in your hand and just make infinite mana. You can cast a giant Walking Ballista and just shoot the opponent for a whole bunch of damage. But another way you can also do it is if Walking Ballista is simply in your graveyard, because then you can pay 4 mana to put a +1/+1 counter on Necrotic Ooze in this case, and then you can remove a +1/+1 counter from Necrotic Ooze to deal 1 damage to any target. So you can just also kill the opponent if Walking Ballista is in your graveyard after making infinite mana with Morsel Hoarder and Devoted Druid. So that's the straightforward way of explaining the deck, but there's a lot of other things going on, so let me try and break it down. So taking a look at the entire deck list, at 1 mana we've got some mana accelerants, 4 copies of Birds of Paradise, which taps to add 1 mana of any color, and 2 copies of Elves of Deep Shadow, which taps to add black mana to our mana pool, also costs us 1 life. But we really want the ability to make black mana here, since Necrotic Ooze is double black. Sometimes we want to hard cast Doomwhisper, which is also double black. So we went with Elves of Deep Shadow over some of the other 1 mana accelerants we have available. Then at 2 mana we've got our 4 copies of Devoted Druid, which also helps to add more mana. And Devoted Druid also has an infinite mana combo with our next creature, which is Vizier of Remedies, which we're also playing 4 copies of, which says if 1 or more -1/-1 counters would be put on a creature you control, that many -1/-1 counters -1 are put on it instead. Which means that if we get to untap with a Devoted Druid and it no longer has Summoning Sickness, we can tap it for 1 green mana, then put a -1/-1 counter on it to untap it. But because we have a Vizier of Remedies in play, we don't have to put any -1/-1 counters on Devoted Druid, so we simply get to untap it for free, add 1 more green mana, untap it, add more green mana, and make infinite green mana that way. And with that infinite mana, we can again cast an infinitely large Walking Ballista to shoot down our opponent with. And if we don't have Walking Ballista at the ready, maybe we have a Duskwatch Recruiter at the ready, which is a 2-mana creature that has an activated ability for 2 and a green, which lets us take a look at the top 3 cards of our library, and then we can reveal a creature card among those to put into our hand. So if we have infinite green mana, we can go through our entire deck and take out all the creatures to put them into our hand, and then eventually we'll find a Walking Ballista to shoot down the opponent with. Then next up we have 2 copies of Fauna Shaman, which is also an interesting addition with Necrotic Ooze, as a 2-mana creature with an activated ability where we have to pay 1 green mana, tap the Shaman, and discard a creature card from our hand to search our library for a creature card, reveal it, and put it into our hand, and then shuffle our deck. So the nice combo with Fauna Shaman and Necrotic Ooze is that not only can Fauna Shaman discard creatures from our hand to then fuel our Necrotic Ooze that's in play, but we can also search up additional creatures that may combo with our Necrotic Ooze and then discard them on the following turn. So Fauna Shaman, just an excellent engine together with Necrotic Ooze, and if Fauna Shaman's in the graveyard, then Necrotic Ooze of course also gets the Fauna Shaman's ability, so it can keep fueling itself, finding more creatures to assemble the combo. And then we also have a one-off Scavenging Ooze, just as kind of a value creature to fight graveyard strategies. And of course the activated ability of exiling a creature card from a graveyard to get a +1/+1 counter is going to be quite strong when we're putting a whole bunch of creatures in our own graveyard. So our Scavenging Ooze can potentially become very large and just take over the board as well. And then next up we've got some more graveyard enabling cards. We've got 4 copies of Grisly Salvage, a 2-mana instant that says reveal the top 5 cards of your library, and you can put a creature card or land card from among those into your hand, and the rest goes into the graveyard. So putting 5 cards in the graveyard is quite powerful, since we're very likely to find some spicy creatures to take over with Necrotic Ooze, or just help us find a Necrotic Ooze if we don't have one already. Then we also have 2 copies of Grapple with the Past, which is quite similar. It's an instant that lets us put the top 3 cards of our library into our graveyard, and then afterwards we can return a creature card or a land card from our graveyard to our hand. So it doesn't have to be one of the 3 cards we revealed, it can also be a creature or land that was already in our graveyard. So also gives us a good way to get our Necrotic Ooze from the graveyard back into our hand, so we can cast it and hopefully win the game. And then finally we also have 2 copies of Eldritch Evolution, which is a 3-mana sorcery that as an additional cost you have to sacrifice a creature, and afterwards you get to search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less, where X is 2 plus the sacrificed creature's converted mana cost, and then we can put that card on the battlefield and then shuffle our deck. So Eldritch Evolution is a great way to search up our Necrotic Ooze or search up different combo pieces. For example, if we have a Devoted Druid in play, we can maybe search up a Vizier of Remedies to make infinite mana, or if we already have infinite mana, we can maybe go get a Duskwatch Recruiter, which can then get our Walking Ballista. So there's a lot of different things you can do with Eldritch Evolution, and it ties the deck together nicely, especially after sideboard, where we get access to some nice one-off creatures that can be very helpful in certain matchups. Then of course we've got our 4-off Necrotic Ooze, 3 copies of Doom Whisper, which is also just a fine creature to cast by itself as a 6/6 flyer with trample, can also just win you the game, but of course shines in the graveyard alongside Necrotic Ooze. And then our 2 copies of Mortal Hoarder, which we don't really want to draw, but we could always discard it if we happen to draw it with Fauna Shaman to get it into our graveyard, where we can combo off alongside Devoted Druid and Necrotic Ooze, and then Walking Ballista, which is our finisher of choice once we have infinite mana. Then taking a look at our mana base, only 22 lands since we have so many mana creatures. That's pretty normal for this type of deck. We've got 3 basic forests, 1 basic plains, 2 basic swamps, a total of 8 fetch lands for Windswept Heaths and for Catacombs. And then we've got a few dual lands that we can search up with our fetch lands. We've got 1 Temple Garden, 1 Godless Shrine, and 3 copies of Overgrown Tomb, since we need a lot of black and green mana here. And then some value lands. We've got 1 Horizon Canopy, which we can sacrifice to draw a card, then a Twilight Mire, which also helps making double black mana, and a Gavany Township just as a value land to put +1/+1 counters on all our creatures to help us beat down if the graveyard plan is not working out. Then taking a look at our sideboard, still a work in progress, but right now we've got 4 copies of Assassin's Trophy as kind of a catch-all answer to maybe get rid of graveyard hate cards or answer problematic creatures or lands. Then we've got a Scavenging Ooze as additional graveyard hate. Garruk Teeg shines against the more controlling decks and certain combo decks. We've got an Eidolon of Rhetoric against the Storm decks. Kambal shines against Storm and Burn decks. Reclamation Sage to deal with artifacts and enchantments, got 2 of those. We've got a Sin Collector to get rid of problematic instants and sorceries from the opponent's hand, so shines against combo and control decks as well. We've got a Fairy, which we can also search up with our Fauna Shaman as additional graveyard hate. And then we've got a Wickerbow Elder, which is a pretty spicy copy that can also deal with artifacts and enchantments, and of course combos very nicely with some of the Necrotic Ooze synergies, as we can repeatedly destroy artifacts and enchantments if we happen to also have a Devoted Druid in our graveyard. And then we've got 2 copies of Obstinate Baloth against the black midrange decks if they play Liliana of the Veil, or just against burn decks to gain a bit of life. So that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the draw. This hand seems okay. Maybe a little bit slow, but hopefully if the elf survives, we get to Doom Whisperer on turn 4. Opponent with an Inquisition on turn 1, probably going after the elves. Alright, so we don't have a turn 1 play now, and a Grapple with the Past, so probably gonna go get a Temple Garden with the Verdant end of turn. So your opponent on a black-white deck, not sure which style yet. Could be kind of a Planeswalker control deck, could be tokens deck, could be all sorts of things. Well, Doom Whisper in the graveyard's not always a terrible thing. They might go with a Grapple instead, otherwise if they make us discard Doom Whisper, we can just get it back with a Grapple, plus get the upside of Grapple as well. So it would make sense for them to make us discard the grapple instead. And yep, that's what they go for. So let's get a Temple Garden and play a Duskwatch on 2. Alright, Devoted Druid could also be interesting here, since that ramps us into Doom Whisper potentially. Yeah, I think I like that slightly more. And it's going to be Collective Brutality, killing the Druid and draining us for 2 life, discarding a Lingering Souls. So opponent could still be on a token deck, but of course every black-white deck is going to want to play Lingering Souls for the most part. Alright, let's hope not to flood out too badly here. Play a Duskwatch, and then we can maybe start drawing some extra cards with the Duskwatch's ability. Alright, Fatal Push killing Recruiters, their opponent just getting rid of everything, but they haven't presented their own win condition yet. I guess Shambling Vent can start attacking and eventually Lingering Souls tokens. But we do have time to top deck our way out of this one. Let's just get an Overgrown Tomb here. And just another land, sadly. Think we still play it, thin out the deck a bit. And then next turn hope to play Doom Whisper. Alright, Thoughtseize takes our Doom Whisper. Well, our opponent definitely had all the answers this game. And we didn't top deck particularly well. And a flashback Lingering Souls to apply some pressure. Alright, now would be a good time to draw Necrotic Ooze, as it would get a whole bunch of abilities right away. Instead it's a Devoted Druid. Still requires an answer from the opponent, otherwise if we top deck the right sequence of cards they could die. And it's going to be Sword of Feast and Famine. Yeah, it's pretty good against us. So we fall to 13. And a Vizier of Remedies, so we have access to infinite mana. So who knows, if we top deck a Walking Ballista, we could just kill the opponent here. Opponent's going to equip the sword. Get in for 4. They get to untap their lands. Don't have anything to discard. 3 mana for Liliana of the Veil, which can make us sacrifice one of our creatures. So my guess is we sacrifice Devoted Druid, the reason being if we top deck a Necrotic Ooze, then Vizier plus Devoted Druid could still amount to something, whereas Vizier in the graveyard doesn't do anything. I think that makes sense. But our opponent had a Fatal Push anyway as their last card to kill our last creature. Well, opponent's empty-handed. They answered pretty much every single card we had. And yeah, now we're getting beat down by Spirit tokens with the sword on it. And if they animate Shambling Vent, we're taking quite a bit of damage here. So don't know if we can top deck our way out of this one. Let's say we do find a Necrotic Ooze. We won't even have much life to spare, so I'm definitely chum blocking the Shambling Vent here with the birds. And of course the Spirit has protection from green, so we can't chum block that one. Just want to have as much life as possible for when we do top deck Necrotic Ooze, so we can surveil more with the Doom Whisper in our graveyard. So if we top deck Necrotic Ooze, who knows what'll happen. Instead it's a Birds of Paradise, our opponent can minus Liliana, and we're dead. Alright, so that game didn't go particularly well. But we also never found our Necrotic Ooze. So against a very controlling black-white deck, they might bring in a bunch of graveyard hate, although they didn't see many graveyard-related cards except for the Grisly Salvage. So Obstinate Baloth seems good against discard spells. Sin Collector seems good at getting rid of annoying instants and sorceries. And we could also consider Assassin's Trophy to get rid of problematic planeswalkers like Liliana of the Veil or Liliana the Last Hope. But it's pretty narrow. But of course it can also get rid of graveyard hate cards, which the opponent might bring in, which would disrupt our combo. So can probably afford to bring in like 2 copies. And then what are we cutting? I think we're cutting the Viziers entirely, since I don't think we're going to get to untap with them when our opponent has this much removal, whereas Necrotic Ooze doesn't really need Vizier to go off if we happen to have the Morsel Hoarder in our graveyard as well. So I think we cut the Viziers, and then still want our Devoted Druids to go with Necrotic Ooze, and we can probably cut an Eldritch Evolution since our opponent's going to be killing all our stuff anyways, so we're gonna have a hard time finding a creature to sacrifice to the evolution. Yeah, something like this seems to make sense. Again, could consider more copies of Trophy. Could consider maybe another Scavenging Ooze to get rid of Lingering Souls, but it's pretty narrow. I think this is fine. Would like to be on the play. And this hand seems okay. So we'll lead with a tapped Overgrown Tomb. Turn 2 we can play Devoted Druid or Shaman. We'll see. I think I'll lead with a Fauna Shaman here. Since we've got 2 of them, if the first one dies it's not a disaster. And we don't really need the acceleration from Devoted Druid yet. Opponent with a Fatal Push on the Shaman. And the Marsh Flats. And nothing else. Alright, so we could Fauna Shaman again. Could Devoted Druid this time around. I think I still like Fauna Shaman here. And if we ever get to untap with Fauna Shaman, we can get our Necrotic Ooze as well. Opponent takes 2 from their land, so they might have another Fatal Push, and yes they do. Alright, so opponent continues the trend of killing everything we play. And there's a Tidehollow Scholar. Well, that can exile Obstinate Baloth, which is not the same as making us discard it. Instead they go for Walking Ballista. Let's fetch our White Source here. Probably Temple Garden. And we could go double Elves here. Don't actually hate it, since that makes Liliana or Thoughtseize a pretty awkward play for the opponent. And that gives us more mana to potentially activate Township next turn. It's gonna be 4 mana for Sorin, Lord of Innistrad. Alright. And Scholar gets in for 2. And Assassin's Trophy to draw. So we have a few options here. We could Trophy Sorin to get rid of it. We could Trophy Scholar to get our Ballista back. Either way we can play our Baloth first. Gain some life back. And then we're just on the Gavany Township plan here to grow our creatures. And our opponent's got a second Sorin, Solemn Visitor this time. Making a flying vampire token. Alright, and a land to draw. So it's time to start beating down with our Elves and our Obstinate Baloth. Opponent accepts the trade. And a chum block. Activate Township. And say go. Sorin's gonna plus. And our opponent's got a Field of Ruin to deal with our Gavany Township. It's unfortunate. Alright. So now we are back on trying to top deck a Necrotic Ooze. Alright, Scavenging Ooze is not bad. So let's attack with our Obstinate Baloth on Sorin. Opponent could double block Scholar and Shambling Vent, but that's fine by me. Instead it's going to be a Hero's Downfall on the Baloth. Alright. Let's play our Ooze and say go. And we can activate it quite a few times now. Sorin makes a Vampire. Opponent's got a 1 card left. Alright, let's start gobbling up some creatures, the ones that don't matter, like Obstinate Baloth, like our mana creatures. And what else do we have here? And we can easily get rid of 1 Fauna Shaman. Alright, and that's I think all we want to eat for now. Alright, Necrotic Ooze has the ability from Fauna Shaman only at the moment. Although we could always kind of kill our own Devoted Druid. And then Devoted Druid's in the graveyard as well for Necrotic Ooze. But still a pretty decent top deck here. So let's attack Sorin. And our opponent's activating Shambling Vents. And it's just a chum block, fair enough. Let's play Necrotic Ooze. And say go. Liliana of the Veil. Is gonna minus, so let's make some green mana in response. And then we'll sacrifice the Devoted Druid. Sorin's gonna plus. And we'll gobble up some of the opponent's stuff here. and a Morsel Hoarder. It's actually an interesting draw. So now we can discard it to the Necrotic Ooze with Fauna Shaman's ability. And go get our win condition essentially, which is going to be a Walking Ballista. And now we have infinite mana thanks to Devoted Druid and Morsel Hoarder. And Walking Ballista should win us a game. Could also go for a Duskwatch Recruiter if we wanted to, but let's just go for Walking Ballista here. Alright, so put a -1/-1 counter on Necrotic Ooze. And then remove 1 to add 1 mana. And our opponent should see the writing on the wall here. And our opponent scoops it up. Awesome. So still game 2 there with a top-decked Morsel Hoarder. And of course Necrotic Ooze with Fauna Shaman's ability is quite nice. So do we change anything for game 3? I guess Galaxy could be useful to stop some of their 4-mana Planeswalkers. But I mean, they're gonna just kill it anyway, so it's not super reliable. I think I like our setup for the most part. Don't think we want a full 4 trophies. Although now their opponents saw all that graveyard interaction, they might bring in some graveyard hate that they didn't bring in for game 2. Sync Collector's not amazing since it can't get their Planeswalkers, but I think it's still above average. Yeah, maybe we do bring in a 3rd trophy for game 3 here, and then cut a random Mana Elf. Or maybe an Eldritch Evolution. Yeah, we'll try this. Alright, we're on the draw. This hand seems fine. Lots of 2-mana plays available. It's going to be difficult to decide which one to lead with. Probably leaning towards Fauna Shaman on turn 2. Since the earlier the better. And it's going to be a Tidehollow Scholar. Although we do have the trophy to potentially answer it, so we'll see what they get. Usually when your opponent has 1 removal spell, it's better to just take that removal spell so they can't answer the Scholar. But sometimes you just take whatever's the best card and kind of make your opponent use a removal spell first to buy some time. It's definitely an interesting decision here. And the fact that trophy also ramps the opponent, maybe they're not too sad if we use trophy on the Scholar. And in fact our opponent is going to go for the Fauna Shaman instead of the trophy. Makes sense. Alright, Birds of Paradise a turn late. So my guess is we just Grizzly Salvage end of turn. And the next turn we can go Birds plus a 2-drop potentially. Don't really want to trophy the opponent on turn 2 if we can avoid it. Alright, so we go down to 18. And it's going to be a Gifted Aetherborn, fair enough. Let's salvage. And what do we find? Doom Whisper, Trophy, Grapple, 2 lands, so not the best. We might just want to get the Doom Whisper as a powerful creature we can cast here. Seems fine. Should have enough lands already with the birds as well. And a Necrotic Ooze, that's a good top deck. Now we can go Birds plus Ooze or Birds plus Trophy. Opponent seems to be missing land drops, so don't really want to give them an extra land in the spot. And it's not like we need the Fauna Shaman at the moment. So yeah, let's play Birds. And then I think we'll just take 2 from Overgrown Tomb. Play an Ooze. And then keep the Verdant in case we need to get white mana for maybe a Gavany Township activation. We'll see. Opponent has not shown us Path to Exile yet. They've only shown Fatal Push as a removal spell. So there's a chance they don't have a lot of answers for Doom Whisper. It's going to be Inquisition, which is going to take our trophy. It's not going to be able to take Ooze or Doom Whisper. Could be that this is followed up by Thoughtseize. Alright, they're going to push the bird. Do we even want to trade Ooze for a Scholar here? Maybe. But they're not even going to offer the trade, so I guess that works out. Alright, so we get to play Necrotic Ooze. Just going to use a forest here. And we could have potentially attacked with a Scavenging Ooze here, since their opponent doesn't seem interested in trading Scholar for Ooze, but I don't think the 2 damage matters. So I'm just gonna keep the Ooze back, opponent with a Dark Confidence, alright. So we get to do our thing here. And a Sync Collector to draw. My guess is we just Doom Whisper and just try to go off and then see where we end up. We are missing several pieces. We both need Devoted Druid, the Morsel Hoarder and a Walking Ballista in our graveyard before we can actually kill our opponent here. So that's 3 different cards. One of them is a 4-off, the other 2 are 2-offs. So we're not super likely to find all the missing pieces with only 6 Surveil 2 activations. And if we pay too much life, then we also risk just dying on the board. And if we want to get maximum Surveil, then we can't afford to get a white source. Alternative is just playing a Sin Collector, activating Ooze a bunch here, but that doesn't do a whole lot. So I think we go all in on Doom Whisper here. And I'm not going to get a white source, so we can afford to pay more life. And start surveilling. Alright, Devoted Druid and Duskwatch, those are 2 good ones. So now we just need to find a Morsel Hoarder for infinite mana, and Duskwatch can help us find the Walking Ballista. So we've got a few activations here to find a Morsel Hoarder. Another Ooze and Whisper. We're also providing a ton of food for our Scavenging Ooze. Alright, there's Ballista as well. So yeah, just have 6 cards here to find a Morsel Hoarder to win the game. Obstinate Baloth is interesting too, since if the Baloth gets cast, we can surveil twice more. But we also have Ooze to provide more life, so I think we keep going. Just kind of go all in. I think we keep going here. Can always make some green mana with Necrotic Ooze and untap it with the Vizier's ability to eat with the Scavenging Ooze. Alright, so let's make some green mana. And then eat a random creature. Untap our Necrotic Ooze, make more green mana. Eat another random creature. And then we can surveil again. Still no Morsel Hoarder, sadly. Alright, now we probably have to call it, since we can no longer gain life. So we're just gonna have to say go here, and there's a good chance we die now. Well, we went through a good part of our deck, but we couldn't find that last missing Morsel Hoarder to completely go off. And a Swamp revealed. So yeah, we're dead to multiple things here. Opponent goes to combat, just attacks with the Aetherborn. Alright, so we could trade off for Scavenging Ooze or for Doom Whisper. I think we block with the Doom Whisper here. And then hope they can't kill Necrotic Ooze somehow. So we can keep surveilling and gaining life with Ooze. And our opponent has a cast down for Necrotic Ooze. That's unfortunate. So now what? We can untap once again. And then we can make some more green mana. And then if we untap again, the Necrotic Ooze is gonna die, but might as well. And then we've got 1 green mana floating. Cast down happens. We can eat 1 more creature with Scavenging Ooze. Have 2 Necrotic Oozes, so 1 can go. And that trade happens. Alright, well, now we've just got a Scavenging Ooze left. And an Inquisition takes our Sin Collector. And just an Overgrown Tomb to draw. Alright, well, probably time to just go on the beatdown plan with Scavenging Ooze here. Don't really have another plan. Staying back is not going to win us a game. I'll keep the land in hand just to bluff more stuff. Opponent takes 4 from revealing a Sorin. Attacks for 4. There should still be enough creatures in the graveyard here for us to survive. Let's eat a Sin Collector. Probably should have considered just eating more stuff before damage last turn, since we're going to do this no matter what. Have 2 Devoted Druids, so 1 can go. And then we can eat the Gifted Aetherborn from our opponent. And it's going to be Lilian of the Veil to kill our Scavenging Ooze. Alright. Well, now we pretty much have to top deck another Necrotic Ooze or a way to get it back. And it's going to be a Morsel Hoarder. Where were you when we needed you? So yeah, we're dead here. Can't do anything. Can't play Morsel Hoarder. Can pay 2 for the Overgrown Tomb, but then we're dead. So yeah, not much we could have done here. So yeah, we went kind of all in on a Doom Whisper in the hopes of finding Morsel Hoarder. Could have potentially played a longer game where we just keep good cards on top with the Surveil. But I doubt that was gonna get there when our opponent was clearly holding a bunch of removal spells in hand. Alright, GG's, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. This hand seems reasonable. Got some mana acceleration in the form of Devoted Druid. Could just play a turn 3 Doom Whisper if Devoted Druid survives. Opponent on a green-white deck and turn 1 Elvish Mystic. Alright, let's play a tapped Overgrown Tomb, and Vizier means that if Devoted Druid survives, we have infinite mana. And with that infinite mana, what could we do? We could play a Morsel Hoarder and then filter the green mana into black mana so we can play Doom Whisper, and then we can Surveil for a whole bunch. Opponent with a Courser of Krufix, that's fine. So opponent on kind of the green-white value company deck. Alright, Ballista I guess gives us the answer to what we can do with infinite mana. So yeah, let's just play a Devoted Druid, hope it survives. And if they don't have a Path to Exile, they're dead. And yeah, it's not like the green-white company deck has a ton of removal. Just 4 copies of Path, and that's usually it. There's a Ghost Quarter on top. And a Fleece Mane Lion, that's pretty fair. So our opponent should be dead here. Unless I guess they've got a Dismember as their last card. But I don't know if these decks typically play Dismember. Don't think they do. So we're definitely just gonna go for it here. So we can fetch a Plains, play Vizier, and then make infinite mana, and play Ballista. I think I'm just gonna show them the Ballista here, and if they don't concede, then we can keep going. And alright, our opponent packs it in. Sweet, so that was a pretty swift victory, just the good old Devoted Druid and Vizier of Remedies combo. So didn't need our Necrotic Ooze in this one, which is good, since their opponent now didn't see any graveyard interactions, so they're not going to board in all their graveyard hate, so we can still kind of keep most of our main game plan. So I don't think we have to sideboard much for this matchup. I think this is probably one of our more favorable matchups, just because the opponent's pretty low on creature interaction. So yeah, I think we can just run it back. Could consider Garroteeg to shut down potential collected companies from the opponents. Don't think that's necessary. This hand seems okay. If we didn't top deck Walking Ballista in the previous game, it would have been pretty interesting, since then we could have cast Morsel Hoarder into Doom Whisper, and then the Surveil would have probably found us whatever remaining combo piece we were missing, whether that's a Ballista or a Recruiter. Let's take 2 here for a bird. And Eldritch Evolution, quite a top deck, since now we have a way to potentially get a Vizier to go alongside Devoted Druid. Let's see what they've got. It's gonna be a Knight of the Reliquary, can definitely beat down pretty hard. Let's see if this time around they do have the Path to Exile for Devoted Druid. We even have a second copy. It's good to have a backup. So let's just play the Druid and pass a turn. So next turn's gonna be interesting if we get to untap, since we could Grizzly Salvage looking for one of the missing pieces, and then Eldritch Evolution to try and find another one. And it's gonna be Stony Silence. I guess that's an answer to Walking Ballista. So we can no longer win that way. And yeah, we didn't really board in an answer to Stony Silence, so fair enough. Wasn't really expecting that angle. But we can probably find a way to still win here. Just casting a bunch of giant Doom Whispers should also do the trick. So we could Eldritch Evolution right away to get our Devoted Druid, so that the green mana can help pay for Grizzly Salvage. So I'm gonna tap this for green, and for 1. And then we'll Evolution, sacking the bird. And get our Vizier. And then we can just try and find our Duskwatch Recruiter, which can just draw all the creatures in our deck, which should be good enough. What's the alternative? Don't think there's any great alternatives. So yeah, let's get Vizier. And now we can start by making a bit of mana. And we'll cast a Grizzly Salvage. And what did we find? Fauna Shaman, that's a decent one. And now we can make some more mana. And then grapple as well. And we found a Morsel Hoarder and Scavenging Ooze. I think we're fine with a Scavenging Ooze here. And then we can still draw with Canopy to try and find a Duskwatch. Find a Township instead, that's a good one too. Alright, let's just empty our hand here. And we probably keep Devoted Druid in hand to discard to Fauna Shaman here. And just pass a turn. So next turn we can go get our Duskwatch Recruiter, which can find all the creatures in our deck. And all the creatures in our deck should be enough to win the game, hopefully. And Courser's not gonna stop that. So we probably should have brought in one random answer to enchantments like Stony Silence, like a Reclamation Sage or an Elder, which I guess also deals with Courser of Krufix, so does have some more utility. Opponent's gonna Ghost Quarter themselves just to make the knight bigger, to get in a bigger chunk of damage. And yeah, as long as they don't have removal in hand, should be able to deploy most of our deck. Alright, let's untap. Activate Fauna Shaman. And go get our Duskwatch Recruiter, which will help us find the other creatures in our deck. Alright, we're just gonna empty our hand here, play a whole bunch of creatures, and we'll be right back. Alright, so we made a bunch of creatures. We've got a pretty big Walking Ballista. Can't shoot the opponent, but it's still a 21/21, so should still kill them in one attack. And yeah, we'll just pass a turn here after attacking with our Ooze. Alright, we attacked for 8 with our giant Scavenging Ooze. And next turn we can just attack with everyone, and hopefully that's enough. It's gonna be Path to Exile, targeting our Scavenging Ooze. Alright, let's get rid of one more land for their Knight of the Reliquary. And we'll search up our own land. Alright, next turn we can play Gavany Township to pump the team, and hopefully that kills them. Could have definitely gotten more creatures in play by activating Duskwatch a bunch and playing all the green creatures we have in our deck, but also kind of want to hedge our bets in case they've got a random sweeper effect that we didn't expect. And there's a second knight. Still fine. Yeah, I think our opponent's still taking a lethal here. Alright, let's untap. And then play Township. Activate Township. And we'll use our Devoted Druid mana. And yep, our opponent packs it in. Alright, so even though we couldn't kill our opponent with our Walking Ballista, eventually just playing a whole bunch of creatures thanks to Duskwatch was still good enough. Sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. Just a one-lander, but we do have birds and double Devoted Druids. I think we can afford to keep. Turn 1 Forests into Utopia Sprawl, so could be a land destruction deck, could be a Devotion Ramp deck. And our opponent shows white, so who knows, maybe it's an enchantment-based deck. Let's just get an Overgrown Tomb here. Play a bird. Could have also kind of hedged our bets in case of a Blood Moon deck, but then we probably would have seen Utopia Sprawl on red. And it's going to be another Utopia Sprawl. Into their own birds, into Glittering Wish, so they can get a card out of their sideboard. They get Saheeli Rai, alright, so this looks like a kind of a Saheeli, maybe Felidar Guardian combo deck. I think we're just playing a Devoted Druid here. Could also Ballista 1, shoot down birds, I don't think that does much. Which will give us access to more mana next turn, so we can maybe Ballista for 2 or go Fauna Shaman plus something else. Oath of Nissa. Finds a land. And now we might see Saheeli. If our opponent ever lands Felidar Guardian, we're in trouble. So getting Ballista down is also insurance against the combo, since we can shoot Saheeli when she minuses to ensure that we can blow up the combo. And Necrotic Ooze was a good pickup too. Forgot to fetch our dual land end of turn there, but I guess it worked out since we drew Necrotic Ooze. We do want to get Fauna Shaman in play as soon as possible, but we also kind of want to play Ballista on X equals 2 so it can survive after being used once. I think we just want to play Ballista X equals 2. And then we can shoot down the bird. And still threaten to blow up the combo if they find a Felidar Guardian. Opponent's got a bolt to kill our Ballista, so if they have a Felidar Guardian, we're dead. They've got 1 card left in hand, they're gonna plus with Saheeli. And of course the combo being Felidar Guardian resets Saheeli, Saheeli copies Felidar Guardian, and you essentially get an infinite amount of 1 power Felidar Guardians with haste that can attack and kill you. Alright, Vizier of Remedies now gives us infinite mana. Doesn't necessarily win us the game here, but still a good place to start. So we can Grizzly Salvage, look for Duskwatch Recruiter or Ballista, and then still play the other stuff in our hand. And did we find it? Nope, Scavenging Ooze instead. Or a Windswept Heath. Kind of liking Heath, since then we have another shot with a second Salvage. So let's get our Godless Shrine. And salvage again. And we still didn't find it, that's okay. So what do we want to get here? Probably doesn't matter too much. Guess we'll go for the bird so we can discard it to Fauna Shaman. So we'll play Shaman. And I think we're okay playing another Devoted Druid here. And then next turn, if we get to untap, Fauna Shaman can find Duskwatch or Ballista, and we can win the game that way. Or we can win with Necrotic Ooze potentially. Alright, Saheeli pluses. Let's see if they can top deck Felidar Guardian here somehow. It's gonna be another Saheeli. Give them an extra scry. And what's the finish? Our opponent scoops it up. Alright, so yeah, Fauna Shaman could have gotten our win condition. And our opponent knows that Walking Ballista is a possibility. Well, this is another pretty decent matchup as a green creature deck with not a lot of interaction. Our opponent did show Lightning Bolt, so they do have a little bit of interaction at least. And now the question is, do we want to bring in interaction for their combo? Could bring in trophies. Galactic doesn't do much. Yeah, we don't have a lot of interaction for planeswalkers and creatures, so just the Assassin's Trophy. So, might be worth it to bring in. And then what do we take out? I think we can afford to cut some grapples. And what else do we cut? Maybe 1 Doom Whisperer and 1 Elves of Deep Shadow. Something like this. Alright, this hand seems quite good. If our opponent doesn't have interaction, can make infinite mana on turn 3, evolution for our win condition, being Duskwatch Recruiter, and Oath of Nissa finds Birds of Paradise. Alright, and there's a Necrotic Ooze as well. So probably need to get a Temple Garden here so we can cast both Vizier and Devoted Druid. I guess we didn't have to fetch right now since we don't have a 1-drop. But yeah, I think we'll get a Temple Garden here. So we're pretty far away from casting our double black spells here by getting Temple Garden, but at least we can play out both Devoted Druid and Vizier. So our opponent's stuck on one land, but plays a Utopia Sprawl. And yeah, we're just gonna play Devoted Druid. And what did they name? They named White with Utopia Sprawl, so they might be unable to bolt or Devoted Druid, so they might be dead next turn. Another Utopia Sprawl. Yeah, this is a little awkward for the opponent. Just has to say go. If they named green, they could have gone Utopia Sprawl plus birds in the same turn, but maybe they top decked the Utopia Sprawl number 2. So yeah, we're just gonna play Vizier. Make infinite mana. And we have to make infinite mana before we Eldritch Evolution here, otherwise it doesn't work. Alright, our opponent agreed to concede if we showed them the Eldritch Evolution. So let's Evolution on the Druid. And this would grab Duskwatch Recruiter, which would then grab Walking Ballista, still with infinite mana floating, and that would kill them. And our opponent packs it in. Alright, so unfortunately we didn't get to see the Necrotic Ooze part of the combo as much as we just saw Vizier of Remedies plus Devoted Druid in action, but just goes to show that the deck has multiple angles to attack the opponent from, and if the game drags out and there's a whole bunch of creatures in the graveyard and we top deck Necrotic Ooze, it can steal the game by itself, but it can still lead to some quick victories if we back it up with a Doom Whisper and get a bit lucky with our Surveils. So that's gonna do it for today. I wanna thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed this gameplay, and as always, have a nice day.
I also want to thank all my patrons for being part of the channel, and you can become a patron yourself today and decide the topic of future videos over at patreon.com/LegenVD.